Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakacarya Ashto Tirutata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sipaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Rama Sundar Radha Kundakiri Gauritam Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Haribol.
Haribol. Jai Maharaj. Welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Today is Friday, May 5th, and marks the appearances of Sri Madhavendra Puri, Sri Srinivasacharya, Sri Radharaman Devaji, and the disappearance of Sri Parameshwari Das Thakur. We're reading in the third canto, 16th chapter, titled The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. And we start again with text 36. As always, we're eager to hear everyone's comments and questions, so please use the raise hand feature, or simply unmute yourself and speak when Maharaj asks for questions. Or you can type your comments into the chat window. We ask that you not send any chat messages into the chat while Maharaj is reading there, because it makes it more difficult to read. At the end of class, I'll post some links that you can share with your friends so they can attend as well. And if anyone wants to lead the closing kirtan, please send me a message in the chat. Maharaj, we're so glad that you could join us, and you are still in Singhachalam. Sorry, I can't pronounce it right now.
Singhachalam.
Singhachalam wasn't coming out, and that's in Germany.
Yes.
All right, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Tulsi Priya. Thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. Thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Teyor Suriyor Adya Tejasa Yamayor Hibaha Akshiptam teja etarhi bhagavam stad vidhitsati. It is the prowess of these twin asuras, demons, that has disturbed you, for it has minimized your power. There's no remedy within my power. However, for it is the Lord himself who desires to do all this. Purport: although Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, formerly Jai and Vijay, became asuras, the demigods of this material world could not control them. And therefore, Lord Brahma said that neither he nor all the demigods could counteract the disturbance they created. They came within the material world by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he alone could counteract such disturbances. In other words, although Jai and Vijay assumed the body of asuras, they remained more powerful than anyone, thus proving that the Supreme Personality of Godhead desired to fight, because the fighting spirit is also within him. He is the original in everything, but when he desires to fight, he must fight with a devotee. Therefore, by his desire only were Jai and Vijay cursed by the Kumars. The Lord ordered the gatekeepers to go down to the material world to become his enemies, so that he could fight with them, and his fighting desires would be satisfied by the service of his personal devotees. Brahma showed the demigods that the situation created by the darkness for which they were disturbed was the desire of the Supreme Lord. He wanted to show that even though these two attendants were coming in the form of demons, they were very powerful, greater than the demigods, who could not control them. No one can surpass the acts of the Supreme Lord. The demigods were also advised not to try to counteract this incident, because it was ordered by the Lord. Similarly, anyone who is ordered by the Lord to perform some action in this material world, especially preaching his glories, cannot be counteracted by anyone. The will of the Lord is executed under all circumstances. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalang. Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Krishna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lulita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna, Karuna, Kando, Dina, Pate, Gopesha, Gopika, Kanta, Radha, Kanta, Namostute. Sabda Kansana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Vanshako Patarubhyascha, Kripasindho Pyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Tayor Suriyor Na yes Tayor Suriyor Adya Tejasa Yamayor Ibaha Akshiptam Teja Etarhi Bhagavam Stud. This is all Krishna's arrangement. There's nothing that you demigods can do about it. It's the Lord's desire. So even I can't counteract it. Srila Prabhupada gives his purport an interesting twist in the end. He's said that these demons can't be stopped because the will of the Lord is unfolding. And similarly, no one can stop a pure devotee who's destined, as it were, to successfully preach the glories of the Lord within the material world. You can do here. Krishna, Krishna. See, back to that. Okay. Yes. So clearly Srila Prabhupada appears to be referencing his own efforts to spread the Krishna consciousness movement by the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It can't, his movement can't be stopped. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also comments that Yamayor means twins, just as in we have Yamal Arjun, but it can also mean that these twins were death-like. They were representing Yamaraj, as it were. Any comments or questions? Vishvasya stiti layod pavahetu radyo yogesharapi duratya yoga maya Shemam vidhasyati sano bhagavan stritishas tatrasmadi vimrashena kiyan ihartaha. My dear sons, the Lord is the controller of the three modes of nature and is responsible for the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe. His wonderful creative power, Yogamaya, cannot be easily understood, even by the masters of yoga. That most ancient person, the personality of Godhead alone, will come, the personality of Godhead will alone come to our rescue. what purpose can we serve on his behalf by deliberating on the subject? Purport. When something is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not be disturbed by it, even if it appears to be a reverse according to one's calculations. For example, sometimes we see that a powerful preacher is killed, or sometimes he's put into difficulty, just as Haridas Thakur was. He was a great devotee who came into this material world to execute the will of the Lord by preaching the Lord's glories. But Haridas was punished at the hands of the Kaji by being beaten in 22 marketplaces. Similarly, Lord Jesus Christ was crucified, and Prahlad Maharaj was put through so many tribulations. The Pandavas, who were direct friends of Krishna, lost their kingdom. Their wife was insulted, and they had to undergo many severe tribulations. Seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. One should simply understand that in these matters, there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam's conclusion is that a devotee is never disturbed by such reverses. He accepts even reverse conditions as the grace of the Lord. One who continues to serve the Lord, even in reverse conditions, is assured that he will go back to Godhead, back to the Vaikuntha planets. Lord Brahma assured the demigods that there is no use in talking about how the disturbing situation of darkness is taking place, since the actual fact was that it was ordered by the Supreme Lord. Brahma knew this because he was a great devotee. It was possible for him to understand the plan of the Lord. So now, going in a different direction, Srila Prabhupada makes this point, which Brahma makes. Tatrasmadiya vimershena kiyarni harta. What will be the use of speculating on the outcome here? We have to simply accept Krishna's arrangement. And the Mantashesh says, how to know for sure if the difficulties are arranged by the Lord? Well, you have to be Brahma. Brahma knows the plan of the Lord. The rest of us may or may not. But sometimes Srila Prabhupada would try for something, and then if it didn't work, he would say that, well, Krishna didn't desire. It's hard to see sometimes what Krishna's plan is, but from my own experience, I can suggest that sometimes things are just lined up in such a way that there's nothing you can do. You may try whatever measures usually work, or you may try what seems like it ought to work, or whatever. But sometimes things are just meant to happen, and there's nothing we can do about it. Adhisthana Tata Karta, Karanam Chap, Tag, Titas, Vivitas Chap, Tata Cheshta, Daivam Chaivatra Panchami. The ultimate factor in the accomplishment of any action is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Arjuna, after Krishna left, said, I'm the same Krishna, I have the same bow, I have the same arrows, and as I did at Kurukshetra, and now I've been defeated by some countermen. In such circumstances, we have to take it that this is Krishna's arrangement. Otherwise, how is it possible? How is it possible? People would expect such things. But when Krishna desires, then the impossible becomes possible, or the becomes impossible. Then we have to see, all right, Krishna has some arrangement. So better for me to go along with that. We find that in one place in Bhagavatam that Vishnu advises the demigods, it's just not the time to fight with the demons right now. If they've become powerful, this is their time. You just have to wait, and then later fight with them. So sometimes we have to try to see what Krishna's arrangement is. We try to understand what is Krishna's desire. Sometimes we consult Shastras, we consult the spiritual master, we consult the devotees, we consult our intelligence. We try to understand as far as possible. Brahma can understand, and the rest of us can try to understand to some extent. But finally, sometimes we just have to say, all right, let us see what Krishna made us. And Tulsi Priya says the last sentence is applicable to so many situations. Brahma knew this. He knew what was going on because he was a great devotee. It was possible for him to understand the plan of the Lord. And the Vishwanath's commentaries speaks to this point. Demigods say, we're dying right now. When will the Lord mitigate the situation? That you live or die depends on the desire of the Lord. But now, at the time meant for protection, he will protect you. This is explained in the verse. We do not know how he will do it. Though masters of yoga have all knowledge, they don't know. What will he do to rescue us from destruction? What's the use of pondering this? Instead of us reflecting on this, he'll simply do it. Now, Tulsi Priya says, how is the universe going on during the dominance of the demons if the demigods are in charge of so much? Well, I don't know the details, whether the demigods were performing their prescribed duties as far as possible, or as sometimes happens, the demons were even taking over the functions and powers of the demigods that the text doesn't specify. But sometimes we see that, like in a war, the enemy is somehow getting control but still the local authorities are providing basic necessities for the citizens somehow or other, or the invading party keeps things going. Not indicated here. Murari says, in every millennium, Krishna annihilates the miscreants. What was the need for Jai and Vijay to appear, for Krishna to satisfy his desire to fight? One possible answer is that at different millenniums, Krishna's devotees appeared for the sake of giving the Lord pleasure. Jai and Vijay are not the only pair to do this. Yeah, I don't have any other suggestions about this. Okay, Tulsi Priya has a hand up.
Raj, I was just thinking about what you were saying before about Krishna will take care of us in his own time and not to worry about it too much. And I was thinking that the whole human project in the material world is that we're always trying to overcome whatever difficulties and calamities that we're faced with, and that's just the whole occupation. You know, we don't, you know, we have to take birth, death, old age, disease, and then we try to overcome those, and then we create more problems in the process, instead of just saying, here we are in the human form of life, let's just become self-realized, Krishna conscious, and not worry about these things, because Krishna will take care of us.
Yeah, we spend a lot of our time trying to counteract the miseries of material existence. Of course, that's our duty, but we have to perform our prescribed duty and depend on Krishna. And thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the third canto, 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. Chapter 17, Victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions of the universe. Maitreyu Vacha Nishamyatma Bhuvagitam Karanam Shankayojitaha Tata Sarve Yavartanta Tridivaya Lokashaha. Sri Maitreya said, the demigods, the inhabitants of the higher planets, were freed from all fear upon hearing the cause of the darkness explained by Brahma, who was born from Vishnu. Thus they all returned to their respective planets. Purport. The demigods, who are denizens of higher planets, are also very much afraid of incidents such as the universe's becoming dark, and so they consulted Brahma. Let me just check here. Are you getting the rain sound effects here?
Rain sound effects? No.
Okay. You're not getting them. Okay.
It's probably being filtered out.
Yeah, it is. I was just checking my settings. It is being filtered out. So they consulted Brahma. This indicates that the quality of fear exists for every living entity in the material world. Four principal activities of material existence are eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. fear element exists also in the demigods. On every planet, even in the higher planetary systems, including the moon and the sun, as well as on this earth, the same principles of animal life exist. Otherwise, why are the demigods also afraid of this darkness? The difference between the demigods and ordinary human beings is that the demigods approach authority, whereas the inhabitants of the earth defy authority. If people would only approach the authority, then every adverse condition in this universe could be rectified. Arjuna was also disturbed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra that he approached the authority, Krishna, and his problem was solved. The conclusive instruction of this incident is that we may be disturbed by some material condition, but if we approach the authority who can actually explain the matter, then our problem is solved. The demigods approached Brahma for the meaning of the disturbance, and after hearing from him, they were satisfied and returned home peacefully. So this fear of the unknown is very strong. When we know what the threat is, when we know what to do, then we feel, all right, I can deal with this. But when it's unknown, then the fear becomes very great. During the recent pandemic, fear was very great because no one knew how the virus would change, where the virus would go next, whether any countermeasure would be effective, who it might attack, and so on. So all of these unknowns made the threat of the virus very powerful. And there are many such examples. Fear of the dark, a very common fear, works on this principle. In the dark, anything could be there. So we're afraid. If we're in enemy territory, we're afraid at any time someone could emerge from hiding behind a tree and shoot us, or whatever the case might be. So this fear of the unknown is very powerful. And that's what afflicted the demigods. The darkness settled in, darkness intruded within every corner of the universe. And the demigods didn't know, what is this? The demigods are equipped to deal with so many difficulties, but this was something new. So they approached the authority. What's happening? What is this about? What should we do? And Lord Brahma was able to give them direction. So Prabhupada says that the godly persons approach the authority, whereas the ungodly try to defy the authority and settle everything on their own power. And because they approached the authority, they got knowledge. Knowledge drives away fear. All right, any other comments or questions here? So the demigods were enlightened by Lord Brahma, informed by Lord Brahma what was going on. And then, all right, they returned to their planets.
There's a comment in the chat box.
Such a great sentence. If people would only approach the authority, then every adverse condition in this universe could be rectified. Yes. Yes, if people would approach the authority of Krishna to understand everyone is in fear. Everyone is in fear of these four principles: eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing. Srila Prabhupada said that fearing is actually the most prominent. We would think that sex would be the most prominent. Prabhupada said, no, fear. Fear is always going on. And because people are following blind leaders, the leaders don't approach the authority. So they're in darkness or worse. And sometimes bluffing that we know what to do, we have the answer. But they're false authorities. So that problem is there. Either we don't approach the authority, or we approach a bogus authority. And then when the bogus authorities cheat us or let us down, then no use approaching authorities. We become averse to all authority. So one has to approach the qualified authority. Arjuna approached Krishna, the Parikshit Maharaj version of Sukadeva Goswami. Authority. And when there's knowledge, authority means the authority has knowledge. When there's knowledge, then all right, now we can deal with whatever the university might be. So Supriya, not only Arjuna, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of this material existence. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. Actually, we are not meant to be threatened by non-existence. Introduction to Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, we're all in anxiety because we don't want to die. No. And yet we're all threatened by death. Kendra, what to say to those who don't believe that there's any qualified authority? Well, I guess we can say that they don't know. You can't say that there's no qualified authority, because that would make you an authority. As the authority, I say there's no authority. So there may or may not be an authority, but if we can find an authority, that will solve our problem. And that's also something we do. When we don't know a word, we look it up. When we don't know what the weather is going to be, we look it up. When we don't know something about how a machine is working, we turn to the authority and say, what's going on here? They don't believe there's any qualified authority. There's so many authorities qualified about so many things. You can't say there's no one who's an authority. The common saying is that everyone's an authority about something. So we all know that there are qualified authorities, but some authorities are more qualified than others, where some are authorities about one thing, some authorities about another thing. So therefore, we're advised to seek a qualified authority. We're sometimes told to seek and you shall find, or we're sometimes searching for God. But searching for God takes the most effective shape when we search for an authority about God. Dhruva Maharaj went out to the forest to search for God, and he succeeded when Krishna sent him an authority to enlighten him about God. So there are authorities about everything else. Why not find an authority about God? Yes, why not find an authority about God? So a person who's fortunate can understand that Bhagavad Gita's authority, Bhagavatam is authority, or they may approach, just as there are scriptures in every part of the world, they give some authoritative direction that there's God, that we have a relationship with God. So some knowledge is there, not that there's no qualified authority. We see that then there may be different levels of authority. In this book you find something, and in that book you find still more. So we present the Bhagavatam as being situated in the highest level of authority, because it can enlighten us on matters that other authorities don't even address. Yes. And if we take guidance from books like Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Srimad Bhagavatam, we can know who among human beings is a qualified authority. We were discussing last night, yesterday actually, the question came up in Bhagavatam class, what effect the Krishna consciousness movement is actually having. And one answer is that Prabhupada's books are being distributed to such an extent that people are getting knowledge, and this knowledge will gradually, what shall we say, will gradually help them. We may not see it happening, but it's happening. Anantashesh says we can see that almost every animal looks around in fear between bites while eating. Yes, we addressed that yesterday in the Bhagavatam class, or the day before, that we're always in fear that the little birds are eating and they're looking to the side. Is someone coming to kill me? Is someone coming to kill me? So yes, this fear is all pervasive. Kendra says, in regard to finding a proper authority, Adho Shraddha, first there has to be some initial interest. Yes. The person, therefore, Prabhupada said the demons, they don't approach authority. They don't have Ashradhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa. Abrapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Varnam. The unfortunate people have no faith in the words of authority, have no faith in Bhagavad Dharma. So naturally they can't attain Krishna, and they just continue on the path of birth and death, but a fortunate person can. In the Bhagavad Gita, Nanutishtanti me matam sarvagana vimudhastam vidyalashtam chetasa. In so many places, those who have no interest, no faith, ashranteya utam dattam, tapastaptam tam shayat asaditude. Without faith and authority, nothing will work. Nothing will work. And that becomes like a demonic mentality. I can't trust anyone, and so on. You get this culture like we can't trust anyone, but then we trust our senses or we trust our demonic friends, and we become misled, or we become angry because we can't trust any authority, and then we just get deeper and deeper into problems, and then we become more and more angry, and then because we're more and more angry, we become more afflicted. So defying authority or refusing to accept authority results in greater frustration, greater anger, greater fear. So yes, there has to be some initial interest. Fortunate person will have it. And our job, Prabhupada said, is to make even the unfortunate fortunate. Yatistu Bhartura Deshad Apatya Parishankini Urne Varsha Shate Sadvi Putra Vasushave Vasushuve Yamal. The virtuous lady Diti had been very apprehensive of trouble to the gods and the children in her womb, and her husband predicted the same. She brought forth twins, soon twin sons, after a full 100 years pregnancy. Interestingly, at least I find it interesting, Purne Varsha Shate Sadvi. You've heard critical things said about Diti, but here she's described as Sadvi, virtuous. She's described as virtuous. There may have been, which shall we say, she was overcome by her enemy in the form of lust, but she was basically virtuous. That's indicated here. Because she was virtuous, she was worried about what trouble her sons might cause the demigods. And therefore it's said elsewhere that she kept the sons within her womb for 100 years. Or Vishwanath comments that she may also be worried because her sons will be killed by Vishnu, as predicted by her husband, Kashyap. So Apatya Parishankini. She was apprehensive of trouble because of her sons, or trouble to her sons. Sadvi. This is in quite a number of places in Bhagavatam we find respectable women addressed or described as Sadvi. Sadvi means virtuous, just as it's the feminine of sadhu. There are sadhus, good people, or virtuous men, sadhus, those who are connected to Sat or pursuing Sat, the absolute good, the absolute truth, sadhus. And female sadhu is sadhvi. So we find women sometimes addressed or described as sadhvi. Nowhere in the Bhagavatam that I know of do we find a woman described or addressed as Prabhu. Anything else about that? Utpata bhavastatra nipetur jayamanayoho tivi pujam turikshecha lokashoru bhayavaha. On the birth of the two demons, there were many natural disturbances, all very fearful and wonderful. The heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and in between. In the coming verses, there's a comment above by quite a long comment. All right. I cannot form this question or comment properly. During the pandemic, the only acceptable authority one could look to know how to act was one's own spiritual master. Some devotees made their own decisions about how to act based on very incomplete or flawed information about masks, vaccines, etc. It was a bewildering time, a test of faith of sorts, and devotees became bewildered that different Vaishnavas came down with COVID despite living in the temple and performing devotional service. It was a time when even leading preachers succumbed, even those who took shelter of masks and vaccines as part of their Krishna consciousness. With many apologies for this unorganized approach to the subject, this question is put. Well, the question suggests several things. One, of course, is that even devotees can succumb, as it were, and die, or fall sick, or die because of the nature of this material world. Prabhupada addresses that in, I think, more than one place in Bhagavatam, that you shouldn't be bewildered by these things. The body is there, and as long as the body is there, at one point or other, it will have to be finished. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu. That's unavoidable. And we shouldn't think, no, how could the spiritual master die? Or how could this advanced devotee die? Of course, we understand the Jayate Mriyate Va Kadachi. There's no birth and death, but how could the body die? There's no guarantee in Vedic literature that because you're a devotee, you'll never get sick, your body will never die. Prabhupada makes this point. That's not to be expected. So if we have an unreasonable or uninformed expectation, then our faith is shaken. How can the devotee die? The Prabhupada makes that point about Haridas Thakur, the Jesus Christ. Jesus was killed, Haridas was beaten. So this is, the devotee understands, all right, Krishna had some plan. The devotee doesn't become bewildered. The other things suggested to me, at least in your question, is that there were sort of conflicting authorities. Some authorities saying the vaccine will protect you, some saying the vaccine will infect you. So that creates confusion when there are different authorities saying different things. Then you become, now what to do? Now what to do? So in such matters, it's hard to have, and of course, the effort can be made to sort of enforce one line of authority, to that no one else should be allowed to speak. We should just hear from one source. Then no one will be confused. Everyone will be enlightened. But whether the enforcement authority has true understanding becomes a question. So, as you rightly say, such incidents become confusing. Even devotees, the material world is such a place that sometimes even the suras become bewildered. We see that here. Even demigods were bewildered. What's going on? What's going on here? They had to approach the Lord Brahma. So, in various mundane circumstances, we may not always have clarity about what's going on, but we finally have to take shelter of Krishna. That whatever is going on, we depend on Krishna, whether this way or that way. Finally, only Krishna can protect me. I have a verse I'm supposed to speak on this morning, in which none other than Hiranyakashipu, while trying to comfort his nephews after the death of Hiranyaksha, makes this point that finally, let's see. Yeah. That sometimes you lose your money on a public street where everyone can see it, and yet the money is protected by destiny and not seen by others, and so you get it back. But if the Lord doesn't protect it, you can lose your money even when it's securely protected at home. And there are many such examples. So finally, Daiva Shaivatra Panchamam, the devotee knows that whether it's this what should we say, circumstance or that circumstance, finally everything is dependent on Krishna. Let me depend on Krishna. All right, we're over time. No, we're not. We're exactly on, but we want to end with a little kirtan. Oh, and Tulsi Priya had a comment above Guru Das's. I don't see it right away. And I think I got Tulsi Priya's comment actually. So let's stop here and after your time. Oh, Kendra says that Tulsi had one above. Kendra is usually a reliable authority. No, I didn't see more. Anyway, let us stop here. If there's more to be said, we can catch up on Monday. Who's leading kirtan today?
Haridas Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Jai Om Vishnu Bhagavatam Supri Prajapacharya Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Sham Kund Radha Kundikidi Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Samanamai Ki Jai, Lucy Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Go Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj, for that nice answer.
Thank you for the question and nice kirtan. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Who is that? The little screen doesn't tell me as much as it should. Thank you, Meena. Thank you to all.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Please share those class links in the chat box with your friends. And we look forward to seeing you all again on Monday for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you.